Hi, I'm Joe Markley, State Senator for the 16th District. We've just stepped out of the joint session where the governor has presented his budget. Presented it very briefly, and I would say with very little conviction. And the details are not there yet, but the broad outlines of it are very, very discouraging. I think it's a budget, in fact, that's probably dead on arrival. And the biggest problem with what the governor has proposed is what I've been fearing for years, a huge shift of state burdens to municipalities, something which is simply passing the buck and ultimately a property tax increase instead of real reductions in spending here in Hartford, which is what we need to do. And to get into it very quickly for you, part of it is to give a third of the cost of the teachers' pensions, which have always been assumed 100% by the state to the towns. Now, maybe that would have made sense if we had done it that way back in 1929 when the pension was set up, but it's always been funded by the states, and to simply at a certain point say, okay, now you've got it, is simply to put a huge burden on the towns, and something that might not even be legal insofar as it's a contractual obligation. But it is over $400 million in expense which would be shifted to the towns. There's also a new educational funding program which is further going to hit the communities that have kept themselves financially solvent in an attempt to shift costs over to shift revenue over to the big cities. So for towns that I represent, like Southington, Prospect, Wolcott, Cheshire, I think the governor's budget would be disastrous. Waterbury could use relief, and I think Waterbury deserves relief on some of their educational funding, but it can't be done simply by taking money from other towns which are already strapped. Another thing the governor's proposed is doing away entirely with the property tax credit which we get on our state income tax. That's something that helps low-income people, that helps working families, and it again is pulling the rug out from under the people who've been carrying the burden here in this state. He's also come out with a figure for $700 million in labor savings by renegotiation in each of the next 2 years. It's ironic, let's say, that when Republicans talked about savings less than half of that, the governor mocked us. Now he's promising that he's going to get it. I hope he gets savings because unless we find labor savings, we can't get out of this fix. But I'd like to see the savings before we adopt a budget. And I'd also like to see savings that don't involve making obligations that tie our hands for many, many years down the road, which we've had over and over again. That's the first look at a budget that I think will have very little support from anybody, Democrat or Republican. I believe in a way the governor has dropped something on our desk and said, okay, I've done my job, and now he's going to walk away and we're going to try to clean up after him. And of course, as I often complain about, in the meantime, a second budget process will start in a back room somewhere between the governor and leadership, and what comes out of that process is anybody's guess. And we may not even know what that is for months until we get towards the end of the session. One last thing I want to add, for those of you who've stayed with me, Representative Rob Sampson and I had scheduled a forum tomorrow, Thursday evening at 5:30, on the Convention of the States project. Because of the weather forecast and the fact that almost all other meetings in Hartford have been canceled, we are canceling that meeting. We will reschedule it. It's something we very much want to do, but we don't want to do it on a day when we can't travel. So, thanking you for your attention. This is Joe Markley, and I will be back to you, I expect next week or the week after, with a little more flesh on the bones of the